Hello, I'm Navid Alipour, Managing Partner at Analytics Ventures. We are a venture fund operating under a venture studio model, helping co-found companies using artificial intelligence. We also have our own AI lab, which we deploy into these companies. I'm here with Anastassia Lauterback, our venture partner and advisor, which we're honored to have you here. She's the author of the AI Imperative, and Anastassia, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We are looking forward to getting your insights on AI and how it's affecting everything.
Right.
You recently spoke at the Global Symposium for regulators in Geneva about how AI is impacting every industry.
Right.
I think it was something like 80% of the economy.
Right.
Could you highlight some of the types of businesses or organizations that are already being transformed by AI?
So, in fact, it's very difficult to find organizations or industries which are not being transformed by AI. There are a couple of traditional companies which are very cautious to implement AI because they're not truly analytical or truly digital. To implement AI, you need a couple of capabilities within your organization. First of all, you need to understand what type of data you have and what type of business question this data might be helpful with. Then, of course, you need to have a certain IT architecture, infrastructure to deploy this data, collect, clean it, and then process it in a way to generate insights. And then, of course, you need to have talent which will be capable to do all this work. Talking about this is probably the most important thing, people. So we are, of course, in technology, but technology is provided, done, developed by people. And I heard that there are just very few thousands of truly AI immersed data scientists. What is earlier was, let's say, statistician is not truly data science.
Right.
I remember my early days in underwriting at the Munich Reinsurance Company who were doing rule-based things and rule-based algorithms for very basic applications, but it's not AI.
Without learning.
Exactly, exactly. So reinforcement learning, so deep learning, this is kind of new. It's like 3-4 years. It's evolving very, very fast, and it's getting implemented in all kind of businesses. Just take agriculture, for example. In agriculture, you can have a robot which will collect your vegetables, and then because it will be equipped with computer vision systems, it will distinguish between different sizes of veggies and then sort them out in different boxes. And this type of labor was a heavy labor in the farms, the manual labor, which was swallowing a lot of costs and time. And attention of people. So nowadays, something like this is implemented by a robot. Then you have water, for example, water supply for farms. So agriculture is a huge vertical which will be supported by AI and in a way disrupted by AI. So companies moving first will have a certain advantage.
Sure.
Then, for example, if you have energy business, I was talking another day to a CEO of an energy company which was in wind turbines, and he said our business is a data science business. In fact, what we do is just to try to understand how data is being collected and what is data showing to us, and then turn the turbine in a way that it's the most favorable for the wind to collect the energy and then to harvest it and then to store it. So
bringing those operational efficiencies
exactly,
to increase production.
Exactly. So, and this is as well, of course, if you're in the manufacturing, then you have remote maintenance. I remember my own project for a very large railroad operator in Europe. They wanted to decrease maintenance cost for the rails. And in fact, what we did was to implement a couple of sensors collecting environmental factors like, let's say, humidity, temperature, and then, of course, everything which was in connection with the railroad business, like the heaviness of those trains, the vibration. And then you implement a model on top of your sensors, which will then remotely forecast when this rail needs to be maintained and when you truly need to send out people there.
So you just used two fantastic examples, agriculture and transportation. Energy, of course, with those two. So I mean, with agriculture, and you and I have talked about this before, with the population growing to what they say 11 billion by late 21st century.
Right.
And with global warming and droughts and and land being displaced because the water level's rising, we have to be more efficient with the land we have, with the water we have.
Absolutely.
And so AI is a tool that we can deploy to do this. It's not going
Right.
to replace humans. I mean, okay, I take that back. Yes, it'll replace certain jobs, but it's
Yes.
going to create other jobs that we can't
Yes.
fathom
Yes.
right now.
I guess AI will change, let's say, the face of the cities, because just imagine we have self-driving cars everywhere. So
Right.
that means that we don't need to have parking lots. At the 19% of time, cars are being parked. They're not on the street.
Sure.
So that means that the whole face of the city will change. So instead of having huge, let's say, parking houses and parking lots,
Right.
those places would be redeployed for something else. Maybe it will be pushed back for smaller businesses, for small retail stores,
That's a great
coffee
point.
shops, to re-emerge.
More affordable for
Exactly,
commercial real
exactly,
estate, for the
exactly.
mom and pop business
Exactly.
owners.
Maybe you will have jobs which are not just, let's say, located in certain centers, like a huge factory or a
Right.
huge employer, whoever it might be. So there will be more freelancing jobs in connection with AI, in connection with whatever we have as a population and human beings. And I think just this technology is a driver to reinvent the future, but we need to be very aware what this future might be. So if I am like an investor, I wouldn't necessarily invest in, let's say, new systems for parking, because those parking systems will be out maybe in 20 years from now, or
Right.
25 years from now. But I would definitely invest in real estate and try to figure out what will be the best use of such a real estate, for the future.
It's so interesting that you brought that example up, because UC San Diego is setting up, they're in La Jolla, as you know, but they're opening a building downtown to have a downtown presence. And the way they're building it is for the parking structure to be, in the future, repositioned to be classrooms. Because
Exactly.
they know that less people will have cars, and with Uber and with
Right.
other transportation and just efficiencies,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So that's a great example of
Yeah.
something where, it might not be good to be in the parking lot business.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
that regard.
But still, we will have certain job families which would need to be reinvented, or we need to help those people, like truck drivers, right?
Sure.
It's like 4 million truck drivers in the United States. There are a lot of accidents, so there will be some positive things in connection with self-driving trucks.
Right.
We will not lose human life, but still, could those truck drivers be in a job to train an eye system? A question mark. They wouldn't probably code. Or what would they do?
Yeah.
So this is something which we really need to watch.
Yeah, and
As
it
a
is
society.
it is a societal and a government
Yeah.
responsibility, because you can't stop innovation, right?
Of course.
And as we've talked about before, in the West, we apply a certain level of ethics where we're not going to clone humans, or with
Yeah.
the CRISPR technology, or
Yeah.
to use AI in certain
Yeah.
ways, whereas in some parts of the world, they don't care about that, right?
Right.
But when it comes to AI, it's, there's those folks, just like back in the day when the car was invented, and they said, look at all the jobs that will be displaced, the people that took care of the horses, that
Right.
built the carriages.
Yes.
But look at all the jobs that were created by the car.
Absolutely.
Right? And sure, do people die because we have cars now?
Yeah,
Yes.
they do.
It's horrible, but
Yeah.
look at all the benefits that have come from the automobile.
Right, right.
And AI is the same, in that it's going to open up doors and opportunities we can't fathom, but there will be negative consequences.
Right.
And,
But car is a wonderful example of innovation. I just remember my time being in Daimler, so I was told, and I think it was true, that the first business case for cars was how many chauffeurs there were available in Germany. This is how they kind of, calculated how many cars they're
Right.
going to manufacture, which is kind of insane.
They never
right?
thought people could drive their own car.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
that's funny.
exactly. Or even, the rails, why they are of a certain size, because they wanted a horse to pull a carriage through something. So they always kind of have this horse
Right.
as a measurement for further technology, which is kind of
That's
fun.
fascinating.
So the history of technology is a history of humanity, right?
It is like
Yeah.
one progression to something
Yes.
else. So, but in your experience, and to take it to that, society, government level, how are governments preparing for AI? And are there regions of the world that are leaders and benefit more, and are the regions that you see risk of being left behind?
Right. This is a fantastic question. So we are in the United States. The United States, for me, was a pioneer in trying to understand artificial intelligence on the government level and to develop a national policy for artificial intelligence in three key domains: defense, then industry, like competitiveness of the country, deploying certain technologies, and then employment, consequences for jobs being created and then being lost. And this happened in the last year of Obama administration. So in between of September and December 2016, there were three important papers published. They are all in public sources, so you can Google them, talking about computer vision, about speech recognition and other technologies, and talking about implication on the US economy coming from those new technologies. And what happened actually when Trump came in, he kind of, abolished the work on those policies, and for 1 year, nothing was more or less done. So now he's kind of, coming back and talking, yes, it's important, but within 1 year, China stepped in. And what happened in June 2017, so half a year after the last paper of White House of Obama was published and presented, there was a huge launch of next generation AI policy for China. And they more or less translated, copy-pasted all the three papers from Obama administration. I really kind of, compared the text.
They're very good at that.
Copy-paste, yeah, exactly. So instead of the word US, it was a word China.
Right.
But they wrote a number which was 150 billion US dollars being invested into artificial intelligence technologies by the year 2030. Wow. And they said that by this year, China will be #1 worldwide as an AI leader, as an AI market. So right now, the AI market in China is approximately 2.3 billion.
Okay.
So just from 2.3 to just imagine the magnitude, and this is very fast because 2030 is like, the day after tomorrow.
Right.
We are in the 11th year of iPhone. Just think in those consequences and what happened and what innovation were deployed because we got certain wireless technologies, and now AI is being embedded into so much. So we will see a lot of innovation. So China is definitely a place to watch. And for me, look, I work with a bunch of companies all over the world, but I see that there are certain discussions on ethics and standards all over the Western European markets and the United States, and of course Canada. I'm a huge fan of Canadian AI policy and what they do for startups, what they do for fundamental research and science, and supporting traditional businesses with new technologies. So Chinese don't really think in the same way as Western Europeans or North Americans how to align goals between, let's say, machines and humans. Right. What might be the consequences for them? It's just there's a market, so we will bring those devices and those technologies to the market.
And they're very good with their 5-year campaigns.
Yes, exactly. They are very long term, so they wouldn't drop a technology necessarily because it's just not performing today. So they're very, very long term. And an interesting example is actually in humanoid robots. For example, personally, I am kind of against of manufacturing robots which look exactly like us. Right. But for Chinese, they're like, there's a market, go on. So we will just deliver what the market is demanding from us. And there's this kind of fun example of Scarlett Johansson being reproduced as a robot, full body size. Wow. So she has never, of course, given her permission to be reproduced as a robot.
And I'm sure she's not getting any royalties or anything from it, even if she did give approval.
Exactly. So, and for me, this is not really fun. And then you might think, what is the next consequences? Robotic children, robotic women, robotic men. So what are the consequences? So there are a bunch of questions here which need to be researched. And I'm a huge proponent of AI is like a proxy for a bunch of technologies, but it's like a proxy for industries because we need input of so many people there. Like I'm researching right now for an article on cognitive science and artificial intelligence. What I learn, like None of the AI scientists right now and coders is thinking about emotional component of how our decisions are being made and how a person is thinking. So though AI needs to replicate thinking processes of human, but in our thinking we have a lot of intuition, we have a lot of emotions and feelings which are deeply encoded even in our cells to deploy certain results. So how will it be with artificial technologies? So we will get certain, let's say, creatures, but they will be very different from us. Right. And we don't necessarily talk about all the consequences. Maybe because we are just very focused on narrow deployment of AI for, let's say, transportation or healthcare or whatever, education, energy, exactly, agriculture. But if we kind of, think a little bit further, then what? And my favorite, actually, physicist, Max Tegmark, who wrote Life 3.0, he has this wonderful example. He's saying, like, imagine some alien civilization gives us a call and saying, in 50 years, we are going to land on the planet Earth. And then, let's say, there's like Trump in the White House and Macron in Élysée. So both of them like, okay, so we got this call. We will be not in the office in 50 years. Should we do something, or should we just, is it important
throw our hands up, right?
For me, exactly,
right.
Or is it maybe something which someone else needs to think? But 50 years, it's nothing for the history of humanity.
Right.
And in 50 years, we will have the universal quantum computing.
Yeah.
We will have more and more technologies. So we kind of need to think about consequences and work on the future we want to have, not on the future we might get, just because, let's say, China is doing a certain AI policy and Germany is not doing the same.
Yeah, no, I mean, you make some fantastic points there, and I mean, there's so many implications, positive and negative, and it's a national security issue, right,
yes.
for all countries, and they have to look out for their interests,
yes.
of course, and Macron, to his credit, is, I think we've talked about before, he's really trying to change the environment there and attract entrepreneurs, and AI as a focus.
Absolutely.
The British, the same, the Germans, as you mentioned, had put out some papers on saying we need to focus on this.
Right.
In Canada, to their credit, is taking advantage of the current political environment in the U.S., where in Toronto's an epicenter of AI, just like I think San Diego, Silicon Valley by default, right. Seattle, Toronto, in North America,
Boston,
yeah. And they're attracting a lot of the best and brightest to Canada now because they can't come to the U.S. So there's interesting political repercussions to policies.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, immigration and migration, there's a huge question mark. I remember Denis Hasavi, who is one of co-founder of DeepMind, he had trouble with his visa to the United States because he's of Iranian origin.
And he went back to Germany, right? I think
exactly.
And he started companies and jobs there, or London, right?
Yeah. So it's just those things have massive consequences. And of course, we need to be cautious with everything, but I think that being intelligent and very forward-looking is very important for politicians, even if they believe it might kind of, hurt their constituency for, let's say, a couple of years, right? But it might even help your people. And I mean, communication is everything. In business, in politics, you need really to talk and explain. And I think that it's not because of the innovation that people are suffering and losing jobs, but because of lack of innovation. I think that, Middle West in the United States or certain regions in Europe, they need more innovation, they need entrepreneurship to open up even, let's say, centers to train AI systems. Or centers for new sensors, or center to crunch certain data and cleanse data. There are many opportunities and many jobs. Reinvent everything, reinvent manufacturing, reinvent the city. Telecommunication operator, which let's say, that don't have a wonderful reputation worldwide for innovation, right? But they need artificial intelligence solutions even for their pipes, because with dumb pipes you can't build smart cities, right? So
no, I mean, that's a great point. And the fact is, and what you said reminded me of something that I've heard, that just like Excel and TurboTax did not replace the CPA, it empowered them to do their job better, more efficiently, faster, automating the, the minutia of the job so that they can focus on the more important part.
Right.
And AI is just that. It's a tool that'll empower doctors and
Absolutely.
oncologists and farmers and manufacturers to do their job better and more
Yeah,
efficiently.
yeah.
In the doctor sense, coming from a family of doctors, that their main frustration is they don't get to spend enough time with the patient because they're so busy filling out
Yes.
forms and doing other things. So if you
Yeah.
can automate
Right.
that, all that other stuff, then it'll give them more time to focus on the one-on-one time with the patient.
And just think about it, if we talk about those forms, I think people designing those forms need to design with AI in mind.
Yeah.
That, this form is truly machine readable. People designing some, huge things on the walls in the cities need to think designing with sensors in mind so that information can be picked not just with the human eyes but with the sensors.
Yeah.
So the implications are profound, and I think that economies, communities, municipalities with this in mind will have huge competitive advantage.
That's a very important point you made, because if you have bad data in, it's garbage in, garbage out.
Absolutely.
And if you're collecting clean, structured data from the beginning,
Right.
that's going to make it so much easier
Right,
to
right.
then apply AI and machine learning applications to bring
Absolutely.
efficiencies
Yeah.
in any vertical.
Yes, and I think this combination between machines and people, it could be really wonderful.
Yeah.
And I mean, Garry Kasparov was the first human
Yeah.
truly defeated by the brute force of a machine.
Yeah.
And he is a huge proponent of machine plus person,
Yep.
for example, to learn and play and compete in chess. He has a large schools, written a bunch of things about the subject, and he talks constantly about a machine and a
Yeah,
person being a much better team than, let's say, only brilliant people or only brilliant machines.
Absolutely. And I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's, as we've seen it with IBM Watson, and IBM always has a great sales and marketing team. They
Yeah.
got a little bit ahead of the technology.
Absolutely.
Because they're trying to say, apply our solution to every problem, and they were negating the human intelligence
Right.
with the artificial intelligence. So you still need the oncologist and the pharmacologist to use
Yeah.
the AI as a tool
Right.
to say, okay, out of this many combination of drugs, out of 4.5 million combinations with CureMatch, one of our portfolio companies, this is the top 3 combos for this patient-specific cancer.
Yes.
That's something no human brain can process.
Of course.
So that's where AI comes in, right?
Absolutely.
So with this, we talk about digital divide in today's world between those that have and those that don't have technology. How will that play out as AI permeates through society? Will it increase or decrease this divide? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that AI might substantially raise inequality, but this is just, I mean, there's nothing truly intelligent in it because it's all by design, and AI just scales things, which we are as human beings. So it will scale good things, it will scale bad things.
Right.
If we have a bad process will be scaled. If we have a biased data set, then it will get scaled, and out of sudden you will be fined much more than I, only because you look differently, or I will be fined more than you because my zip code might be different from yours. So the administration system for whatever, social security, even health records, admission to a college, everything which might be supported by data could get, let's say, shifted because human eyes are no longer there and the machine is making decisions. So we need to be very cautious in how we deploy data en masse, and who is actually behind this data and who is behind the algorithms and technology. So, and this is why I'm a huge supporter of diversity in all machine learning teams. It's not just about gender. We need all kind of skin color, all kind of professional background.
Absolutely. People think differently depending on where they're from, their gender, ethnicity, where they live, socioeconomic status, how they grew up.
Yes, so this is all important because AI is just like a mirror of what we are, and I don't want this mirror to be ugly, right? If you remember this chatbot Tai by Microsoft, which learned within like a couple of days to be racistic, misogynistic, chauvinistic, person,
Sure.
right? And before it was a sweet girl, right?
Yeah.
Because a certain community on the web engaged with it, and then made
That's
it
what it
for
learned.
fun.
Yeah.
And this is what it learned, and that's a kind of a mirror of this segment of a
Yeah.
society, but the society is much more than that. The problem with AI is it's horizontal. It's through and through of different clusters of society, and for this reason, it might kind of, augment certain things and increase certain things, and there will be certain negative consequences. So this is why we need national AI policy. And number one job is education.
Yeah.
It should start in schools. It shouldn't start in college.
I agree with you 100%. I think that, data science, artificial intelligence 101 should be taught at every high school. Just like
Yeah.
I had to take biology and chemistry and physics,
Yeah.
and I don't use any of that. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person, but I have that foundation. It was a requirement.
Right.
And so
right.
we agree with you 100% that
Right.
data science should be, they teach wood shops still, right, in high schools. And I did it, but I'm not a carpenter, right?
Yeah.
But I agree with you 100%. Data science should be requirements in high school and college,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
even if you're not a technical person, you go into real estate, you go into
Yeah.
banking, you go to anything, it's going to touch all aspects of our lives.
And you
So-
will need to write a very small AI application on your own. Python is not really that difficult. And frankly, when I talk to my daughter about it, she's 9 years old, I'm saying like, look, it's like for me like cooking, right? Of course they are chefs and they are fabulous and we celebrate them and go to their 3-star Michelin restaurants.
Right.
And then there are amateur cooks who are great, and certain are specialized in Japanese and other in Indian or whatever.
Mhm.
But if you just don't cook at all, it's probably difficult to go out every day. So you
Right.
need to do certain things.
Yourself.
Yeah, yourself,
Yeah.
exactly. And this is the same with rudimentary coding. We are not talking about building, I don't know, the next generation of Teslas
Right.
or
Space shuttles.
SpaceX. Exactly.
Right.
We are talking about, let's say, I need to do a certain application because I'm doing my, let's say, diploma work, and I write a thesis, and I collect this data, I need to analysis, and I need a smart UI. Many things will be pre-programmed. And you would be capable to deploy with plug and play certain things, but
Sure.
still you need a rudimentary understanding on how it works.
That's a great point, and there are open source tools like
Oh, yeah.
TensorFlow and Apache
Yeah.
and Cafe,
Yeah.
and they're not perfect. One is good at ABC, but
Yeah.
not XYZ, and
Yeah.
vice versa. But they're good enough for a certain level, and then it's, for example, at our other company, Curemetrics, that they detect breast cancer and mammograms better than any other company out there, large and small. And the reason they're so good is they custom build their own algorithms.
Right.
Now that said, a lot of applications you don't need that level of
course.
efficiency, and using the open source tools can still get you a long way.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think that's a great point you
It's
made.
a
That
huge market for me. This
Yeah.
education and teaching kids, and then very young students, teenagers,
Yeah.
to code, to do robotics, and to do it not in a way like, oh my God, it's technical, but just it's like cooking, it's like drawing, it's like
using Excel.
using
don't
Excel,
have to
exactly,
use
using
it.
PowerPoint.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. So, well, Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, just keep doing what you are doing. I'm really in love with your portfolio companies. It's great, and I really hope that you will get more and more businesses coming into your family.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.